What do you remember about the Mia Farrow marriage?
Well, we loved Mia. Mia was one of our, like a sister. And we had a good time. Tina and Mia and I did. And Daddy said, I'm not sure it's going to last very long, a couple of years maybe. He said, but I feel like I have to do this. And we said, great, she's a great girl. And
a Hollywood romance between the iconic chairman of the board and the industry's most enchanting rising star might seem destined to conclude with a quiet press release, but the reality was a public explosion that rocked the entertainment world. When Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow tied the knot, critics called it a mismatch, yet the couple defied expectations with a whirlwind love story that captivated millions. But behind the glamour of private jets and Palm Springs getaways, a silent battle of wills was brewing. Nobody knew the final blow would not come in a private lawyer's office, but in front of a stunned cast and crew during the filming of a cinematic masterpiece. The Unlikely Fairytale. In the swinging 60s, no two people seemed less suited for one another than Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow. He was 50, a hardened icon of the Rat Pack era, with a reputation for a fiery temper and a history of high-profile romances. She was just 21, a waif-like flower child with pixie-short hair, fresh off the success of the soap opera Peyton Place. When they married in Las Vegas in 1966, the ceremony was so rushed that Farrow didn't even know the date until the day before, scrambling to find something to wear from her own closet rather than a designer gown. The public gasped at the union, comedians cracked jokes about the age gap, and gossip columnists gave the marriage 6 months at best. But initially their world was one of intense passion and surprising tenderness. Sinatra, often seen as the tough guy, doted on Farrow, presenting her with a stunning 9-carat, pear-shaped engagement ring that cost a fortune, a symbol of his desire to lavish her with the security she craved. For Farrow, the marriage was an escape into a world of sophistication and protection, but it was also a gilded cage she wasn't fully equipped to understand. While the world saw a power couple, the dynamic inside the home was heavily skewed by their generational divide and Sinatra's expectation of absolute loyalty. He wanted a wife who would be available at a moment's notice, waiting for him after his shows, not a career woman with her own grueling schedule. Farrow, blinded by love and youth, tried to adapt, but she was also an artist with a pedigree, the daughter of a director and an actress, and the itch to create was impossible to suppress. Years later, looking back on the innocence she brought to that complex dynamic, she offered a candid assessment of her own readiness for such a high-stakes union. Quote, I was less mature than any other 19-year-old I've ever known. Poor Frank, saddled with such a child, she reflected on the imbalance that defined their early days. The admission highlights the fundamental disconnect that would soon turn their domestic bliss into a battleground for independence. The Hollywood Standoff. The tension began to simmer when Farrow landed the lead role in Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a psychological horror film that promised to catapult her from television darling to serious movie star. But the production was plagued by delays, and Polanski was a notorious perfectionist who demanded take after take, causing the shooting schedule to drag on far longer than anticipated. Sinatra, meanwhile, was preparing to film The Detective and had reserved a pivotal role for his wife, expecting her to be wrapped on Polanski's set and ready to join him immediately. As Rosemary's Baby ran over schedule, Sinatra's patience evaporated. He viewed her inability to leave the set not as professional dedication, but a direct act of defiance against his wishes. The situation escalated into a psychological siege that left Farrow feeling trapped and isolated. During the chaotic weeks leading up to the conflict, she was living in a rented house where the press presence was so overwhelming she had to crawl on the floor just to reach her refrigerator without being photographed through the windows. In the midst of this stress, Sinatra issued a cold ultimatum: quit the film immediately, despite it being 3/4 finished, and start The Detective or face the consequences. For Farrow, walking away was impossible. She had poured her soul into the character of Rosemary Woodhouse, enduring a grueling physical transformation to embody the role. To leave the production in the lurch would be a betrayal of her professional ethics and her heritage. The pressure was immense, with the most powerful man in Hollywood on one side and a career-defining masterpiece on the other. Quote, he left me because I wouldn't leave the movie when he told me to leave it. I couldn't leave a movie, she explained, detailing the professional deadlock that doomed the relationship. The public execution. The climax of this marital drama played out on the set of Rosemary's Baby. surrounded by lights, cameras, and a crew that had become Farrow's temporary family. It was a day like any other, with Farrow preparing for another emotionally draining scene, when the atmosphere suddenly shifted. A stranger arrived on the lot, not a fan or studio executive, but a corporate lawyer sent directly by Frank Sinatra. There was no private conversation, no warning phone call to soften the blow. In a move calculated to maximize humiliation and demonstrate his absolute power, Sinatra had the divorce papers served to her right there, in the middle of her workday, in front of the entire cast and crew. The shock was absolute. Farrow, who had believed that their love could withstand a scheduling conflict, was blindsided. She had assumed Sinatra's threats were merely the venting of a frustrated husband, not the prelude to a legal termination of their marriage. The brutality of the act left her devastated, shattering the illusion that her husband prioritized her well-being over his own ego. It was a cold, transactional end to a relationship that had begun with such romantic fervor. The crew watched in uncomfortable silence as the young actress, visibly shaken, was forced to process the end of her marriage while still in costume, inhabiting the skin of a woman whose own life was unraveling on screen. Director Roman Polanski later recalled the moment vividly, noting that Farrow was devastated and crying, remarking to him he just sent his attorney. Polanski, witnessing the cruelty, concluded simply, "I didn't think it was a very elegant way to end a relationship." Quote, "I just thought it wouldn't happen, but it did. His lawyer came on set, served me with divorce papers," she recalled, capturing the disbelief of that traumatic moment. An enduring bond. In the immediate aftermath of the divorce, the silence between the two was deafening, but time would reveal a surprising twist in their narrative. Farrow finished Rosemary's Baby, delivering a performance that became legendary, while Sinatra moved on to marry Barbara Marx. The role in The Detective that caused so much strife eventually went to Jacqueline Bisset, launching her career, a bitter irony that likely wasn't lost on anyone involved. But the severance of their legal ties did not permanently sever their emotional connection. As Farrow matured and navigated her own tumultuous relationships, including a high-profile and painful split from Woody Allen years later, she found herself turning back to Sinatra. The anger of the divorce faded, replaced by a deep, protective friendship. Sinatra, who had once humiliated her on a movie set, became her staunchest defender in later years. When the scandal with Woody Allen erupted, Sinatra reportedly offered to have Allen's legs broken, a testament to the fierce mob-style loyalty he still held for his former wife. They spoke regularly, and Farrow often described him as the great love of her life, hinting that their bond had transcended the failed marriage. They proved that while they couldn't live together as husband and wife, they couldn't quite live without each other. It was a complex, layered relationship that defied the simple bitter exes trope, proving that the connection they shared in the 60s was genuine, even if their timing was wrong. Decades later, she would still refer to him affectionately as Charlie, her personal nickname for him because of his Charlie Brown face, memorializing a love that outlasted the lawyers and the tabloids. Quote, "The essential person of Sinatra was so compassionate and shy and readily available. It ended up being a friendship that lasted until he died," she said, revealing the soft heart hidden beneath the tough exterior. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Mia Farrow made the right choice by prioritizing her career? Let us know in the comments section below.